that basically tripled my business in a year. Now my team is much smaller than it used to be, but we're doing the same volume of work. No, it was total chaos for 5 years, basically. I mean, I would just go home and cry. I would go home and, I had a couple panic attacks like very early on where I had a baby at 41. And so between having my baby and then the business was impacted by the fact that I wasn't paying any attention to it. We had a material that failed and it cost me $50,000. My assistant quit with no notice at the beginning of the year, which is something that I'm seeing over and over and over again with Gen Z.
Welcome to The Business Game, the show that breaks business down into real levels, from $0 to $200 billion, so founders can see exactly where they are and what comes next. Today's guest is playing at level 1, the founder survival stage. At this level, you're proving the model worked. You're validating demand, refining positioning, and fighting for consistent revenue. The challenge? Doing almost everything yourself, hiring your first team member, and stepping from practitioner into CEO. The goal? Turn expertise into traction and build momentum that's repeatable, not accidental.
Let's dive in with Lindsay Scherr Burgess. All right, so Lindsay, welcome to the show. Let's dive in straight away. So for people who haven't seen one of your moss walls in real life, how do you explain what Green Wallscapes actually does?
So what we create preserved moss walls. And so what's happened is this moss has gone through a process of preservation. For lack of a better word, it's been taxidermied, so it is living in suspended animation, and you put it up on your wall. It can be manipulated in a lot of different ways that normal plants can't or living plants cannot, and then you just enjoy it for a long time. There's a lot of companies all over the world that do this, but we like to think that we're one of the best, and we focus specifically on large-scale, mostly commercial applications where we're doing corporate offices or lobbies or things like that with large scales, typically with branding and other things like that in there. And then also very art-driven pieces. So if someone comes to us and wants us to custom design something specifically with their space or specifically with certain colors, we're able to really accommodate that.
Okay, and just on exactly what you do, why is that important to people inside buildings? Why do you exist, in other words? What's the thing behind that?
Why do I exist? No, we exist because people spend something like 95% of their time indoors. And the other thing, there's been this trend towards sort of stark minimalism, sort of Apple Store design, for lack of a better word. And so the moss walls offer sort of an antidote to people being inside so much and really not having exposure to a lot of green. And so we warm up a lot of really cool spaces, whether it's too much white, too much gray, or too much beige. This is a way to bring in another texture, bring in another color, and really warm up a space. The benefit, though, is that it can be used in areas where actual plants can't be used for whatever reason, whether irrigation or lighting just won't allow for it. So, or someone who just has a brown thumb and doesn't want to deal with the maintenance of ongoing maintenance, basically.
Yeah.
So,
we both look away really awkwardly.
Oh no. Walls are a good solution.
Yeah.
I suppose, Lindsay, as well, with that, with the green, and I know for myself, there's that sort of psychological effect of it as well, of calming, of nature, of that, bringing that into your working space.
Yeah, and it's also just beautiful. The pieces are really, really, we design them as also art, right? So we go through a whole process with all of our clients, because every space is custom made, that, sort of says, okay, well, what other elements do you have, and how do we integrate this into the overall design? So it's meant to elevate the walls. Sometimes we have clients who just want to do one single color and they just want a wall coating, but for the most part, they hire us because of our design expertise and how all of these things interface and what the flows look like and all of that kind of stuff. So people are really taken aback when they see these in real life, what kind of energy that they have in them. That energy is beauty beyond, and it's great. Getting to design with plants is a total gift. It's awesome.
So Over the thousands of projects that you've now done across multiple countries, when was that first aha moment that you had where you were like, I'm onto something here, I've got a business?
So I really didn't think this was going to be a business, to be very honest with you, for like a long time. So we started this very much as a side hustle. My husband and I like make things. We made a moss wall. A friend was like, hey, can you make me a little plant painting? And it started like very gentle and organic that way. And we had a little Etsy shop for like a year and a half. But you know, my husband and I were in the construction business I was doing marketing and business development in construction and architecture. He's a landscape architect by training, but also does sustainability stuff. And he was like, Lindsay, I'm starting to see these moss walls specified in in lots of different projects. And I was like, I still don't think this is like a real thing. Well, he was right and I was wrong. That's fine. But I would say like for me, it was just a sample of like, I started very slow. I sort of said, okay, I'm going to take this on full time. My husband very much encouraged me. He's like, take 6 months and see if you can make this work. And very early on, we got calls from for very small projects, but for very big brands. So we did a project for Southwest Airlines, like within a few months of us starting. We did a project for Walmart corporate offices when it was very early on, and they were all tiny projects, but it didn't matter because then I was able to say, well, we've done projects for Walmart, we've done projects for Southwest Airlines. These are real brands that then give you that credibility. I would say that a real big turning point in our business was we participated in a designer show house in 2019 where we, were photographed for Architectural Digest and Veranda Magazine and all these other big publications. And I think that sort of helped change our reputation because of the scale and because of the exposure level. Not that we ever we actually did a moss staircase, which was super cool. But not that we really did a lot of residential after that, but I think it just sort of put us in a different category where I was able to say, listen, we were able to be in all these magazines. You should be comfortable to hire us. And from there, we've done projects, all over the country, in Canada, in the Caribbean. We mostly work in North America because the shipping gets a little bit complicated, and there's wonderful purveyors in the rest of the world that are more local. We've gotten requests from as far as Saudi Arabia and Abu Dhabi, but I don't know how to get the stuff there. So, that's the interesting part of this world. And so it's been a wild journey. I mean, it was like one wall, then another wall, then another wall, then another wall. And sometimes I'm like, I don't think there's any more business. And then we get 10 more inquiries. I'm like, I guess there's a business. So, we just keep going.
Yeah. Lindsay, just on those bigger corporate clients, did you chase them or did they just happen along? It was one of those meetings, the synchronicity kind of thing that we hear about a lot these days. Which was it for you?
Well, I think for us, it was very much when we were starting advertising, I was putting $2 a day on Etsy because there were 5 people doing moss walls in the country, right? There weren't a lot of people doing this. And so, it was just, we just had figured out that people were doing image searches and stuff like that. And we were just popping up a lot, right? And so we had a lot of inquiries initially from Etsy. It's much less now. that's not the major part of our business. We didn't really start marketing until 2023. So people were finding us different ways. I mean, initially it was we just, and my background is in business development and marketing. It's not like I roll out of bed and I don't know how to do any of this stuff. I know how to make websites. I know how to do networking events. I've been networking for 20 plus years. I have massive, I have 12,000 connections on LinkedIn. I have, a lot of marketing background. So for me, it was easy. And I had already been in this world, so I understood a lot of the requirements in terms of some more of the technical stipulations that were required, for designers to be able to specify us, for the fireproofing requirements and all these other things that, sort of set us apart, right? And then we've learned as we've gone along. There was a period where we didn't really have a process for design. And then we were like, oh God, I guess we need to have a submittal process and all that kind of stuff. Everything was learn as you go, figure it out, all those kinds of things. Which is not a good way of running a business, by the way. I would be much better at starting a business from zero now than I was when I started my business, 8 years ago.
On that, I guess looking back through right from the beginning, what was the biggest bottleneck that you had to break through before things really started moving in a fluent manner and started propelling you forward?
So before I started, the company, I was always like an independent contributor. Like I was always like the one on the outside that was doing the sales or the marketing or whatever. But like I didn't interface with the rest of the team. So, I didn't know anything about operations other than like you do what you say you're going to do and you just get things delivered. And for probably the first couple $100,000 of business, like that's how it works. So, but I was working a million hours because I was bottlenecking everything and it was terrible. So I found a coach, actually a coach found me on Facebook. And 2 weeks before COVID shut the world down, I paid him $8,000 to teach me how to like not be working 60 hours or 70 hours a week. Like I was working every weekend. It was awful. But, there was just no way for me to unbottleneck the business. And he was like, this is how you do KPIs. This is how you do standard operating procedures. This is how you do, weekly meetings with your team. This is how you delegate and then also how you check on people. It was a whole, he had this whole system that was amazing that basically, tripled my business in a year, basically, because I was able to put systems in place where my team was able to see, okay, these are the next steps. I mean, we had to come up with checklists for everything. We had to come up with so I didn't have to check anything because if they did it, they checked the checkbox. It wasn't me going back there and into the studio going, well, did you spray the spray? Did you do this? Did you do that? It was like, no, these are the things in every project that are the same. And then these are the things that are different. And then, with processes, you also are always iterating. So things, you get better and better and better and better. So now my team is much smaller than it used to be, but we're doing the same volume of work. So I'm able to pay my team a lot more. I have a better team. They're much more trained up. We're able to, kind of have a hierarchy within the studio in terms of people who are preparing material versus people who are doing the actual mossing. So it's able, and certain people have strengths in one area and others have strengths in other areas. So assigning the right kinds of projects to the right people is really, part of it. And all of that takes forever. And another turning point was hiring my studio manager, who stuck with me through a lot of turmoil when my sort of OG team that was really not growing with me and not wanting to take it to the next level sort of revolted almost. And then we had to work through all of that. And it's been a really long process to get through all of that. But it was just, I needed someone who could come in and really help us hone in on the process, hone in on quality control, and then make sure that things were delivered on time.
Lindsay, you've worked with, as we mentioned at the start, some big brands, Amazon, Starbucks, Hilton, all of those, the iconic names. And you mentioned they started as small projects at the start, but they're also big companies, big brands, big reputation for you to deliver to. Was there a moment where it felt like complete chaos and what the heck do we do now? Or did it all go smoothly?
So, no, it was total chaos for 5 years, basically, until I went through this coaching
I'm sure
program.
there's a lot of founders
terrible.
out there that are doing in the process of their startups that are like, oh, thank God.
Yeah.
No, I mean, it was horrible. I would just go home and cry. I would go home and, I had a couple panic attacks, very early on. We had, there was a period where I was doing both sales and project coordination, where I was ordering material and staying on top of all the details and then trying to sell on top of it. It was just way too much for one person. And, there were parts, especially in 2022, when the economy was just out of control. We couldn't get material. Everyone was quitting. There was, all sorts of these other challenges going on. And I was just, I literally, I have had panic attacks, and then somebody was supposed to help me with an install, didn't help me with an install, and I still had to figure it out and deliver on time. You just develop such a thick skin that, you're kind of always like, well, the ball's going to drop. It's just how am I going to react to how the ball is going to drop? And I'm getting better at it. I'm still not great at it. I still take a lot of things personally that I probably shouldn't take personally. I probably am slower to make decisions about hiring, firing, etc., than I should. But what I have found is that, just continuing to show up, even if you don't want to, even when it's hard, and just delivering is all that you can do, right? So if you say you're going to do something, do it. Be the person who actually has integrity in your industry, and respond to phone calls. I mean, today we got a phone call. This lady was like, I called this other company. They were like number 1 on Google. You're number 2 on Google. They didn't call me back. And I was like, well, they lost a customer. And I'm here to pick that customer up and give them a better experience. Anyway, that's the thing, is it's like, you just have to be like responsive, and then you have to be on top of all of the details and all of the follow-up that's required to make sure that, what you're making is actually going to fit in the space and all that kind of stuff. Because when you work in construction, especially in South Florida, nothing's ever on time, and the walls are all crooked, and nothing's ever built to the right scale. They don't communicate properly. So you really have to like almost go on the offense in terms of like getting those details to make it happen.
So, Lindsay, in those really dark times, were there moments where you felt like quitting? And if so, what actually? Because life and business is a series of sliding door moments, right? So, what was it that made you stick at it when it would have been maybe even easier to walk away?
I've had this conversation over and over again. I'd say like 2024 was a really hard year. I had a baby at 41. And so between having my baby and then the business was impacted by the fact that I like had the baby because I wasn't paying any attention to it. I really, felt, like, is this really the right thing for me to be doing? Is this the right use of my time?
Yeah.
And I think, when you have children, it really does change your life, especially in the very beginning when you're not sleeping, et cetera. And so for me, it's, I would say that there have absolutely been moments where I wanted to cancel, I wanted to quit. And, I think it's stupid. Like, if you've built all this stuff and you spent all this time, it's really easy to be like, I want to burn it down. I want to go do something else. I want to do this and that. But I also think that, like, your ability to work, and Alex Hormozzi, who I follow him a lot. He's like, your ability to just show up when you don't want to show up, do the reps even when you don't want to do the reps, is the difference between a successful person and a not successful person. And it's not more difficult than that. It's picking up the phone when other people don't want to pick up the phone. It's responding quickly when other people don't want to respond quickly. It's having integrity and doing your job. And it's not difficult, but it's also difficult. And, I do see, and it's a gift to be able to have a business that's successful, a business that cash flows, a business that actually works, because I had multiple businesses before this that did not work. So to have something that like people continuously reach out to us for, and that we've now become like one of the best people in the world probably for this specific application, it's a gift that we get to be at this level. I mean, it's really, really special. And it's taken a long time to get it to this point. So I would say that either I'm stupid and I just should probably, just quit anyway, or, it's just like the staying power of if you're going through hell, keep going, because usually things will get better, and I've had periods where I've been really bored because like the business is working really well and the machine's not broken, but it's like there's not a whole lot of growth the way that I want it to be, or we're like in the middle of something, or it's the summer and it's just more quiet or whatever, and I'm just like, well, I want to do something else. I want to because that's my personality, is like next hard challenge, working through the challenge kind of thing. I want that dopamine of like I succeeded through this. And what I found is that like those times you have to be really grateful for, especially when the business is working really well and you don't have too much to do other than just sort of like to take care of it and make sure that it's going to keep going. And then just be ready for the next thing that's going to come in, because stuff is always happening.
Was there a moment, so we've touched on sort of, I guess, the mental toll it can take on a founder, with the workload and just the sheer, I guess, being that unorganised, chaotic feeling. But was there a particular moment where things almost just broke?
Yeah. We had a material that failed in 2023 that was on, I don't know, 20 projects, and we had to replace all of it, and it cost me like $50,000. And I replaced all of it, and then in the meantime, I had employees that were fighting. I had, sales had started to like not be as robust as 2021 and 2022, and it was like a lot of convergence. I think I was pregnant at that time. Like, it was just a lot of things all at the same time. Or I just had my baby. Sorry, I just had my baby. But at the same time, I was just kind of like, all of this stuff is a mental game. And, it's like the game that you're playing with yourself where you're like, okay,
Yeah.
am I going to keep showing up? Am I going to do what I say I'm going to do? Am I, being the best version of myself? I didn't really feel like that for a really long time, to be very honest with you. I felt very like I am just getting through this, and it's painful, and I don't like it. And I am frustrated on a regular basis. And then you hire like a good team member, and all of that can turn around. And I'm very lucky to have people on my team who really have my back and who stick with me and who have been through some stuff, but it's taken a really long time to get here. And you do have times where, people are upset about one thing or another. They've got stuff going on in their own lives, and you have to decide like how much of that you want to take in on yourself. I used to take all of my team's drama and internalize it and bring it in and be worried about it and all that kind of stuff. I've gotten through all of that. I'm like, this is what's happening in their life. They can decide, as long as it's not impacting how they're doing their work, I'm not gonna, go there with them.
Yeah.
So that's taken a long time to learn. And I think that a lot of it is like being gentle with yourself, especially if you are sensitive, if you are, I don't know if I'm neurodivergent, but I definitely have ADD, and it's gotten way worse since I've had my daughter. And so when you have these different sensitivities, it's like you take on a lot more, I think, than other people. And that's what also makes you amazing at your job, but and your business, but it can be like really detrimental. So I don't know. It's like those are the times where I have to like really almost trick my brain into like, it's not going to be like this forever. You've been through down periods. You've been through up periods. Just keep going. Like, everyone's dealing with something.
I'm interested because your business is at a particular stage. So I'm interested in a little bit of that personal battle. You're doing very well. You've got multi-region delivery, a really impressive client list, but you're also still heavily involved in the business. So I'm curious, what are you still personally doing in the business that maybe you shouldn't be doing, but you haven't fully let go of yet?
Time to fess up.
Yeah.
Right now, way too much. Yeah. So, my assistant quit with no notice at the beginning of the year, which is something that I'm seeing over and over and over again with Gen Z, which is just the most fun. So, I have to like take a look at myself and decide if, am I going to do this again? Am I going to train someone up and, hire someone who's less expensive, less, maybe has more technical experience, but like could be a little bit more flighty, which has been my experience with the last couple of assistants that I've had. Or go find a real person who can help me with ops and really help me take it to the next level. Because there's a lot of other things that we want to do, but every time I hire somebody thinking, oh, I can train them up and they can get into this role, or they have that kind of growth mindset, most of the time they just want to come in, they want to clock in, they want to do their job, and they want to leave. And I have found multiple times that they're using ChatGPT so much that they don't, and they're not using their own judgment, that it's actually like impacting the like day-to-day of the business. So I am looking for an operator, somebody who can actually come in and take on the majority of the admin, so once they know how to do it, and all of this stuff is documented to the hilt. Like, we document every checklist, how to order things, how to, how to do all this stuff so that, if someone leaves, the next person can come in. So it's not hard, but it is also someone who has to like this. And then once I can get myself out of the operations and the day-to-day and the invoicing and all of that stuff that I'm currently doing, then it'll freeze my brain up for, what's the next phase? Because we want to launch an exterior part of our business, but we need installers, we need product, we need marketing, we need all these things. And none of that can happen if I'm stuck in the weeds doing an assistant level job. And like I said, this is my fault. I have hired lower to pay less, and I'm getting what I paid for. So I think going forward, I'm going to be looking for a different level of person who is excited about this, who has the business's best interest in mind. They don't need to know how to do everything, but they need to be open to learning. They need to be growth minded. They need to want to grow with me and grow with the business. And so that I can be in my area of genius, which is, promoting the brand and talking about this stuff and thinking about, okay, these are the trends that I'm seeing in the industry. Where is the industry going? Do we need to start looking into live plants? Do we need to start looking into maintenance things? If I have the right operator in place, we can start to really do that stuff. But if I'm stuck constantly getting pulled back in, and I had a year or two where I didn't do any of this, and honestly got a little bored because there wasn't enough for me to do. And that was a great problem to have. I mean, it was I could really roll in at 11:30 and roll out at 4:30 and have finished all the things that I needed to do for the day. It's just recently where I've had to get back in the business. Now, the thing that I will say though, is every time I get back in my business, it helps me see something, see a process, see an issue that I missed or overlooked or let fly, that because I had other people dealing with it and it got done, so I didn't really care. But it's these are the times when I really get to see the inefficiencies that are still there and work on those processes. So when the next person comes in, it's training for the right processes. So you have to think about it that way. You have to really try and take the personal part out of it. I'm terrible at it, but that's what you're supposed to do.
Hey guys, just a quick break to thank our affiliate partner, HubSpot. We are thrilled to announce our partnership with HubSpot, the ultimate all-in-one CRM platform. HubSpot helps you streamline marketing, sales, and customer service with powerful tools to grow your business faster. From lead generation to automations, it's got you covered. By using the link in the description, you not only get to start your HubSpot journey for free, but you'll also be supporting our work here on the show. Now it's back to today's episode.
So with I would say, you're hiring a lot of artists. So what you do, you have a business that I guess you can say is based on an art form.
Yeah, it's art.
It's art.
Yeah.
What would you say is harder? Teaching the people the actual skill of creating the green walls to your expectation, or is it teaching them the standard of your overall business? Because you've just gone through with us, and I think we can probably both attest to that Gen Z does work different. There is a different work ethic there, be it right or wrong or whatever it is, but it's at a different level to ours. What do you think's harder, teaching them to do the walls to your level, or teaching them to really get in and have that grit on what the business is and the standards that you want to uphold?
I would say the second, so specifically for our business, a lot of people who are artists they're like, ooh, look at this creative job. It's not really that creative because we have such a standardized process that they come in thinking, oh, I'm working with plants. Oh, I'm doing this. Oh, I'm doing that. And it's no, you are gluing moss to boards as fast as you possibly can. It's really more like a fabrication or a production job. The design stuff, a couple times a year, just to refill my team's cup, I will have days where we get to do make whatever we want or try and experiment with new materials or do something to help them feel more creative
those creative juices,
because it really is get some creative juices going, because a lot of it like really is templated at this point. And so, they're just privy to the very end, like after we've gotten the design approved and all that kind of stuff, they're just literally fabricating it. I don't want to diminish what they do, because there's a lot of finishing work that is really, really difficult and takes a long time for people to learn. The other thing is it's physical, right? So a lot of people doing crafts for 2 hours a day is very different than doing, mossing for 8 hours a day. It's like, you've got the glue, you've got a lot of scissors and glue guns and other things going on that, sometimes you're working with paint, etc. It's messy, it's smelly, it's got a lot of different elements to it. So people have this kind of dream about what it is. And especially if people have gone to art school, they think that there's going to be some like a more creative aspect to it. And it's really more of like, I need you to execute on this design that we've given to you, not you're not coming up with it. It wasn't always that way, but we found this to be like the fastest, most efficient way to do it. Because the people who are good at drawings and renderings and all of that stuff are typically different than the people that are good at like actual production. And so, and you have a lot of ego there, especially if they've gone to college for art. It's like, well, what's the statement or whatever? And it's like, there is no statement. The client wants the swoosh like this. We are going to give the client what the client wants. And a lot of times we're going to hate what like they decided on. Yeah. We think that's the uglier version, but we have to just make whatever they want. And that's a really hard thing when you're in a creative business with creative people who want to be creative. And, so we do try to like create outlets for them, during slower periods so that they are able to like make stuff of their own volition. And sometimes they come up with like really cool ideas, but a lot of times it's just, it can be really sloggy. And in terms of like, the conversation around Gen Z, I'm just getting to the point where I'm like not going to hire them anymore. And I know that that's terrible, but it's, maybe I'm going to get in trouble for this, but it's getting to the point where, shame on me once, shame on me twice, shame on me 5 times. It's just really, really frustrating. And, the challenge that I'm seeing is that like, as we all know, life is really long. And so, and the world is a small place. So you don't want to leave jobs with no notice, because then you don't get a reference. And then, and there's not that continuity around your working experience. And, I've had experiences where people have called me and said, oh, hey, I saw that blah, blah, blah worked at your company. I'm like, yeah, but they quit with no notice. Great. That's all I needed to hear. Yeah. And, but again, it's like, it's a personality type. I've always left jobs better than I found them. And I have found that like it has paid dividends later on. But if you don't have that feeling of longevity, now I understand too, with the cost of living, with all of these different things, I get it, but you can't roll into a job when you want to roll into a job and roll out of a job whenever you want and quit with no notice and think that you're going to get a good reference, because that's just not how the world works. And I don't know, it's really interesting to see like generationally how things are changing and what the expectations are. I'm not saying that every single person is like that, but what I'm saying is my experience has been that the majority of the time.
I don't think you're alone. We speak to a plethora of leaders and founders, and it is something that has come up.
It's real.
Like
we're not just being grumpy old people, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is an issue that's going on within our workforce that is affecting our businesses, because they do tend to come in at whenever they want and leave whenever they want. And leave with no notice. And this is something that is a continual subject. And I don't know that people know how to deal with it, other than Gen Z is now the last choice of who we might hire. And then you sort of get to the point where you're putting them all in one bucket, and that's not fair.
Yeah, absolutely.
It is a very tricky situation, because what do you do?
And I don't know what the answer is to that, because I do think that like COVID messed a lot of things up for people. And I do think the cost of living is just crazy. But on the flip side, I'm like, when we were working in, when I was 25 to 20 to 30, it was the global financial crisis. So if you had a job, you were lucky.
Yeah. Yes.
And you worked as long as your boss wanted. You worked as much as you possibly could because you were like, I don't know if I'm going to have a job tomorrow. And I think that the challenge with COVID is that a lot of people got free money during COVID. I think that also too, they lost out on a lot of like the in-person mentoring that happens during that time. And there's this almost like hesitancy around like, I should know how to do all of this stuff instead of just asking. And then they get like frustrated on the feedback loop and some of that stuff. And now you've got ChatGPT that's sort of giving these answers that aren't correct. And then they're using that as kind of the reference point. So it's like a lot of confluence of a lot of different things that I'm seeing in the same time. And again, like I have a microcosm of all of these different experiences that I'm experiencing in my own business. But I've just gotten to the point where I'm just like, okay, well, you know, never say never, but you know, there's serious considerations around generational changes that I'm considering and thinking about. And you know, and what's crazy to me is that like now they're saying, well, all these kids that are coming out of school can't get jobs. And it's like, because literally you're seeing this like constantly being burned by, you know, the kids that are a couple years out that then gives people like, ooh, I'm just going to hire millennials because also I can get somebody who's been out of work for, you know, 6 months and go that route. So I don't know. It's an interesting time. And I don't know what the answer is. I don't.
Yeah. And you're right too. Tarring every single one with the same brush it's unfair as well, right?
Yeah.
But like you said, you know, once bitten, twice shy, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
So, Lindsay, just on the world that we've got at the moment, you've mentioned chat a couple of times. So what impact has AI had, particularly you're a creative business, what impact has AI had on you? And if not a lot at the moment, where do you see AI impacting your business further down the track?
Well, we're using ChatGPT for brainstorming mostly. So I will typically, like if I'm trying to research how to do something really technical, I will go to ChatGPT, but I will also go to Google and I will also just go like directly to the source because that's my training, right? So if I've got an issue with Google, I'm going to look on, you know, chat, I'm going to look on Google, and then I'm going to go to the Google Ads thing and actually try and get like a professional on the phone to help me fix these things. And what I've found 95% of the time is that chat's going to give you this like really kind of comprehensive idea, but a lot of times it's incorrect. And then, you know, Google's not going to give you quite enough information. And then like the person is actually going to get you where you want to be, especially when you get into sort of more technical, nuanced things, right? And then, you know, but where we are using it a lot is for like brainstorming, you know, ideas around new content or ways of like writing down SOPs or, you know, putting together different programs and things like that. But it isn't agentic other than we do use Zapier, which is like, you know, you connect different apps together and like this thing copies into here and all that kind of stuff. And that saved a lot of time. I mean, we probably save like 30 to 50 hours a month on like just not having to manually copy and paste certain things, which is awesome.
That is very significant time save.
Replacing a whole person? No, it's absolutely not. I'm working on like, I'm part of this program called Digital Marketer. They have like GPTs that you can literally download into your ChatGPT and you can ask it specific questions. It's been trained on all of their knowledge. And that's awesome because it's like, okay, I want to make a landing page. Can you look at the landing page I've created and then give me some feedback based on this specific thing on your knowledge? You use like what you want to do versus what they say, and then you kind of like discern what you're going to do. But do I do everything that chat says? No. And then sometimes I will use it sort of like, hey, I need you to pretend like you're Tony Robbins, or I need you to pretend like you're Cody Sanchez, or I need you to pretend like you're this or that, and like give me the hard truth. And sometimes I will literally ask it to be like different people that I follow, and then get the response, and then kind of discern from all these different responses what I would actually do for some business situation or whatever. And so I use it really like a brainstorming tool because you have this thing that has access to so much information. And so it can give you some ideas, but are those ideas the final ideas? A lot of times, no. And there is so much AI garbage out there right now that we're seeing. And it is what it is. Like, it's fine, and it will get better. And, I just haven't like been able to figure out the agentic stuff yet, where it's actually doing stuff on its own. But I do think that like long term, there's going to be certain stuff that like we won't need X, Y, or Z, lower level people anymore, because all of that stuff can be handled by technology. But somebody still has to check it. Like, it's still not correct, at least now.
That's right.
And it will get better, and it's going to continue to get better because they're continuously feeding it. But I think, the other thing that I've heard is that like they've run out of certain amount of data. So then the next thing becomes, where are they getting the data from, and how is the data actually sourced properly, and all that kind of stuff. So I think, it's going to be interesting to see like how this all plays out in the next like 10 years. But for right now, it's, it's just, I use it just like a thing that knows how to do a lot of stuff. I played a game where I was using it for investment advice, and I bought like $10 of all the stocks that it told me to do. And like 3 of them went really well, and 2 of them went really bad. And like 1 was fine, like whatever. But I was like, this is just a fun game to see like what would happen. And so, again, you can't think that everything it's saying is true. And I think the challenge that a lot of people have is that they think that just like everything this AI says is like omnipresent and it knows everything. That is absolutely not the case.
Yeah. With that, and I'm guessing the answer to my next question won't be AI, but what systems or processes or a hire that you've made has made the biggest difference to you and your business thus far?
So I have, after I learned that there was like this thing called standardization and processes and all that kind of stuff, I think that has been, sort of like there are these sort of leaps where that was one leap. And when they started breaking down, what I realized is I went to another scaling course, and basically they were like, you have to make a flow chart of everything that, happens in your business and when it happens. And so that you can sort of discern why X, Y, or Z thing is breaking down. So how do customers happen? Make a flow chart for that. What happens once the customer happens? What's the flow chart for that? And what it does is it says, okay, this is like where we're bottlenecking a lot. We're getting stuck here a lot. So what are the things that we can do differently in these certain areas? And it helps really to like visualize all of that stuff. And then you keep, sort of have a process for checking it all the time. So that's probably like, something that I thought was really missing from my for my SOPs and my processes from before. And then I would say, that's one thing. And then I think it's just like literally developing a new mindset over time around, what am I willing to give this business? What kind of brain? Like, it used to like completely overwhelm me. And I came up with this mantra: everything can be fixed with more time, more money, or more moss, which is a ridiculous mantra, but it makes me feel better. And so what that does is it takes the pressure off the business, because people are not going to die if their moss wall does not show up. I mean, I've had moss walls lost. I've had moss walls stolen. I've had, everything that you can possibly imagine.
Wait,
and maybe there are things that I can't imagine that have not happened.
You've had moss walls stolen?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Someone saw a moss wall and just... stole... What? How? What? I can't even fathom that, going, there's a wall, I'm going to steal it. Yeah. Like they literally stole a package, like, how people steal like Amazon packages, they stole moss walls. Yeah. Like the porch pirates.
You just get used to, like literally porch pirated like in front of this lady's business. So, and we had video and everything like that. It didn't matter. Like, we just had to remake it. So, it's just situations like that where you're just like, okay, again, you can get completely overwhelmed by these things. And I used to be completely overwhelmed by them, but now my perspective has definitely shifted. I don't know if it's because I'm getting older. It's because I had a kid. It's because I've just been through so much shit, excuse my French, that like or my American, that, we are I'm just at the point where I'm like, okay, well, we're just going to get through this. It's painful, but we're going to get through it because you know what? I've gotten through things that are way harder and way more difficult. I
Yeah.
made a human in my body. Like, what in comparison to that is, there isn't anything in comparison to that.
Yeah, I quite often will, tell family members or my team or whatever, I'm like, in 2 days' time, how much is this still going to be stressing you out? In 2 weeks' time, is it something you're going to be thinking about? In 2 years' time, is this now a distant memory that doesn't even matter? Just because, and I think it's really good
Right.
to just
Like, you wouldn't even think of it.
self-check. Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting the way that
Yeah.
the psychology of how you work can really frame you and your team.
And, it's like, when, for example, when my assistant quit, like I've needed an operator for 2 years and I keep hiring assistants thinking they're going to be operators and, a COO or an operator, whatever. And I got to the point with this last one where I'm like, if I keep hiring the same person over and over and over again, this is a gift for me. So it's like, I'm trying to constantly like reframe things as gifts and lessons, even if they're really annoying in the short term, because usually it opens it up to like something better and you don't even know it. Like, that's what's so wild about it is you're like, there is no like, it's just making space for like the right thing to show up. And so for me, it's like, I know that I'm at the point with my business that like, I've done 1,000 moss walls. What do I really like doing? I like talking about the moss business. I like talking about entrepreneurship. I'm interested in certain parts of this, but the day-to-day stuff, I really, someone else can handle it. It does not have to be me.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, that's where we are at this phase of my business. And it's exciting. It's an exciting phase to be in because I know if I have the right hire, things will feel so much different really, really quickly. So, and that has happened to me before. I have found those people before, and I will find this person again who can handle the sort of front end of the business and help us take it to the next level.
Speaking of those, I guess the psychology and so forth of the business journey, Lindsay, one of the things that creative founders often do, especially early in their journey, is underprice their work. And I think that comes from, if something is really good and it comes easily to you, it's kind of, shucks, it's nothing kind of thing. Did you go through that when you look back and you go, gee whiz, I was really wildly undercharging for this?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, because I didn't know. I mean, there was a woman who was Gen Z though, by the way. She came in and she said, well, my dad runs his company like this and I help him with this stuff. So like, you should do this thing where you figure out actually how much money it costs to make this stuff. Because I don't think you're really making as much money as you could be making. And she was 100% right. So, we implemented a whole process for like, how do we calculate hours worked, material used, we had to develop spreadsheets with all of these different, elements, because we have a million elements that go into these different, these different walls.
Yeah.
And, laying out the process, how do we speed it up during certain times of the year, et cetera. And so there was a lot of work that we did in those years to kind of say, okay, actually, this is what it's going to cost. And you never get it 100% correct. You think and then like a project will just throw you for a loop because there's something weird about it. I think we had like 1 or 2 projects last year where we didn't make any money. But then there were other projects where we made like a ton of money, so it just like worked itself out. And most of them, like we have a goal of like 50 to 60% profitability so that we can pay for all the other stuff that we need to pay for. And we have found that that works really, really well for our business. It keeps everybody employed. I'm able to give bonuses to my team. I'm able to but I'm able to keep the doors open if we have like a month or 2 where things are a little bit slower and then they pick back up again and that kind of stuff. So it's been a learning process to sort of figure all that stuff out. But yeah, absolutely. In the beginning, I had no idea how much to charge. And I didn't have any overhead at that point. I mean, that's the thing that I have now too, is that, we'll get calls from people and they're like looking at somebody on Etsy and they're like, well, why are you so much more expensive? I'm like, I have people, I have a retirement plan. I have, my people are paid well. Like, we're not really set up to compete at that level. We're set to compete, at the level of you need a 500 square foot wall. We're one of 2 or 3 companies in the United States that can do this. And that's it. You know what I mean? So that's kind of where I'm more interested in being anyway. But it also means too that like there could be periods that are longer between sales, especially in commercial and business to business, where like you're either slammed and you can't breathe, or it's like you've got a lot of window to do different projects. So it's interesting how it works out.
Lindsay, if someone was to come to you and they're starting a creative design-led business today, but they're 2-3 years behind where you are now, so they're at a different level to where you're playing at the moment, what is one really good cheat code you would give them, or one bit of advice that will really help them just get out there from something that you learnt in your process?
It doesn't matter what you like. It only matters what the customer likes. Like, so you can, if you need, or you have the ego around like your creativity or your, all of these moss walls are my moss walls. And there's some that I absolutely love. And there's some where I'm like, this is really boring, or God, that's such an ugly design. Why did they choose that? Whatever. Yeah. And so for me, it's like, that's where I see it going. I really see like, you have to like take your ego out of it and take your expression out of it, because until you're an established designer and you have a design language and you just have to say yes. You have to say yes to whatever they want you to do. If someone is giving you money, you say thank you for that money, and as long as they're nice to you during the process, you do what they ask. You deliver on what they asked in like a way that's wonderful to them. But if they need to make modifications to your work, you cannot take it personally. You've just got to do what they want, even if it's not what you want. And you don't have to show it as part of your portfolio. But what I usually find with those kinds of projects is that it adds another dimension to our work, because we're able to discern and we're able to come up with new ideas from their ideas. We use them. You have to think about them almost like a brainstorming partner as opposed to the other way around.
Lindsay, we're almost out of time. Curious though, you've won awards, you have top tier clients, and we've mentioned a number of those big corporate clients, which is really cool. But what part of the business still feels, maybe messier than people would expect?
I mean, I think it's just, I think it's just finding that person who can handle the operations, and like that I feel that I can genuinely hand it over to them and they got it. That is, and I think this is a little bit like where my personality is like holds me back a little bit, because I talk a big game sometimes about like wanting to just do marketing and wanting to blow it up out of the water. And then part of me also still wants that control, right? And wants to make sure that everything is perfect. And I've given a lot of that up, but there's still part of me that like has an ego attachment to the level of work that goes out and what things look like. I've gotten a lot better, but I'm still in it a lot. And this is going to be an interesting exercise to see like how well I do with this, like how well I sort of give up, those sort of day-to-day things, because there's an identity there, right? There's like I worked through this and I know how to do it better than everybody else. And well, I actually don't. I'm actually kind of terrible at it. I've been doing invoices for the last 2 days and I hate this stuff. So I would say like that's where the stuff is. But the difference is that we're set up in a way that someone could come in and relatively easily get going and crush it, because we have done so much documentation and so much work over time to get to that point.
Yeah, it's sort of said no founder ever, right?
Said no founder ever, Right now...
Yeah, I mean, it takes a long time to do all this stuff.
For you right now, what does winning the next level mean? Does it mean you get more revenue, more freedom, a calmer business structure? What is that for you, getting into the next level of business?
I think it's more freedom is probably the bigger thing for me. And it's more freedom from the things that keep me up at night, which are the details. That is the goal. And I think for me too, it's like really trying to figure out how to hire that next level of person that
Yeah.
I can really rely on, because I have been burned so many times that like at some point you start to be like, well, there's no one out there and da 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 da, or like Gen Z's all
Yeah.
like that, whatever. That's all like stories, right?
Yeah.
Those are, so it's really like, can I find somebody that I trust enough to be able to sort of carry the mantle in terms of all the operations, come up with better solutions, handle problems, keep me out of the day-to-day stuff that like keeps me up at night and wakes me up at 3 o'clock in the morning, all that kind of stuff. But I don't wake up that much at 3 o'clock in the morning anymore. I used to all the time. I used to just be super stressed out. But now I'm like, they're not going to die. It's a moss wall, kind of thing. Even though they say they're going to die, they're not going to die.
Right, note to self, Jamie, they're not going to die.
They're not going to
There are a
die.
lot of
It's a
moss
moss wall.
orchards.
They're not going to die.
Yeah. That's almost, that can be a quote moving
There's
forward.
a
It's a moss
surprising
wall.
amount
You're
of
not going
moss
to die.
orchards. Yeah. This isn't life or death. It's just a wall covering.
Yeah, yeah, fantastic. All right. To wrap up, Lindsay, one of the things we like to do is play what we call the rapid fire round. So we're going to fire 10 questions at you. And the
Okay.
purpose of this is to get to know the person behind the microphone at a little bit of a deeper level. So are you ready to go?
Yep, let's do it.
All righty. Number one, what's your coffee order?
Venti, Americano, splash of coconut milk, 4 shots of sugar-free vanilla, and cinnamon.
Whoa.
Every morning.
Well,
That's the longest one we've ever
very
had.
I'm glad I don't have to get your coffee order because I would not remember that. What was your first job, Lindsay?
My first job, I worked at the Gap. I folded a lot of clothes when I was a teenager.
Early riser or night owl?
I would say neither at this point. I'm tired all the time. I'm not a super early riser. I'd say like I'm a late early morning person, and then I'm a going to bed at 9:30, 10 because I can't keep my eyes open person
Yeah.
at this
enough.
phase of life. I used to be a night owl, though, for sure.
What's your book or podcast recommendation?
Book. Wait, what is a book? I haven't read a book in a long time. No, I'm just kidding. I'm trying to think if there's podcasts. I love a lot of podcasts. I do a lot of listening to things. I listen to Ryan Dice a lot. I listen to Alex Hormozy a lot. I listen to Tony Robbins a lot. I listen to this woman called Jamie C a lot. And then I listen to a lot of like financial podcasts because I'm actually very interested in like women and money and stuff like that and investing. So I listen to like the Money Guys and stuff like that. I love like how it's built, all of those kinds of things. And it's terrible that I can't think of like a book that I love, but to be very honest with you, like by the time I get any time to read anything, I'm just so tired that it's time for bed.
Yep.
I do read, sometimes I do read historical fiction, but beyond that, not really much.
Okay. Android or iPhone?
iPhone.
Office or work from home?
Office.
Right. If you weren't doing what you do now, what career would you choose?
I would probably be in marketing in something else. I did commercial real estate for a long time and I really enjoyed that. So that's something that I would look into. And then, like I said, I am interested in like women specifically and investing. And so I don't know what I would do in that. I don't think I'd be like a financial planner or anything like that, but I would like something around financial education or something like that because I'm very interested in empowering women around money conversations.
Your go-to productivity hack?
Meditation.
One piece of tech you couldn't live without.
Probably my iPhone.
Best investment you've ever made?
I think like my functional medicine doctor. He fixed my hormones and I had a child. So like, that's good. That was a really good investment.
Is definitely probably the best investment you could ever make.
That's a solid ROI, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right,
Yeah.
fantastic. Look, last question, Lindsay, because we are out of time. So if business truly is a game, overall, so Lindsay Scherr Burgess, how do you define winning?
I define winning by, I get to make amazing things for really nice people all over the country, and that I'm having fun and that I'm making money. That is how I win the game. And that I'm not so stressed out in that process of making the money.
Yeah.
And that I'm able to deliver on time and that the stuff looks amazing. Those are all things that are winning the game to me.
All right,
Beautiful.
fantastic.
I actually have one last question.
Go.
Lindsay, I can see some of your moss art behind you.
I did notice that.
And
Yes.
I haven't had a really good view of it.
Yeah, there you go.
Hey, there we go. It really is art.
There it is.
Nice.
Yeah, I mean, they're really beautiful. Yeah.
It's been bugging me.
Yeah. I mean,
And
it's
I'm
a long
like,
time to- yeah.
every time you sort of move to the side,
Yeah,
I'm like,
just a bit
"What?
more.
Just
Move a bit more."
Yeah. Thank you so much for joining us, Lindsay. It's been fantastic.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been so much fun. Thank you for waking up early. And, I appreciate your time.
That's okay. I'm going to go back to bed now.
No, you're not. All right, Lindsay, where can people find you online?
You can find me at greenwallscapes.com. And you can also find us on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, TikTok, and all over the internet. Yeah, we're everywhere.
All the socials.
Yeah. All right, fantastic. That's all we've got time for. Now, if this episode resonated with you, follow The Business Game on your platform of choice so you'll keep hearing more episodes like this one.
Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time.
Thank you.